Lots of things were very unfamiliar in many respects. There wasn't any exposed land surface very close to us here, so we were in this shallow epicontinental sea actually overlying the continent. It was much warmer back in the Ordovician period, the late Ordovician period, than it is now. And we're looking at a time in Earth's history where life had very recently expanded in diversity, starting about 520 million years ago. A big boom. The first real animals appeared and expanded markedly. But during the Ordovician, there was a second explosion of life, called the Great Ordovician Biodiversification Event. A lot of the animal groups and plant groups that were established in the seas during the Cambrian really expanded, and some more new ones appeared.
The Craigleith that we know today, which is in two parts, above the ridge and below the ridge. Below the ridge has only been exposed dry land for about 7,000 years, so it doesn't go back very far. But above the ridge was really exciting during the Ice Age, when the big ice sheet came down from the north, just like a big snow plow pushing in front of it all the earth from northern Ontario. And so that changed the whole topography. When the glacier withdrew, it left this great mound of earth stacked up against the Blue Mountain. As soon as the ice was sufficiently withdrawn, the animals returned to the area, and then hunters following them. So the archaeological history of the Blue Mountain begins with what we call the Paleo period, 10,000 years or so. The first return of Homo sapiens back into the territory which we know as the Blue Mountain and Beaver Valley.
This was the land where the Wendat people lived, the Huron people lived, Anishnaabek people lived here. We all lived here and coexisted within those circles. We preserved the land, we respected the land, we respected the animals. We, literally abided by the culture and the ways of ebbing and flowing as one cycle, one circle.
In front of the escarpment, due to the glacier, is this whole mess of earth, which is called a moraine. And the moraine soil being mixed was very good agricultural soil, and of course what they did grow was corn. So areas which were good for growing corn became the center of a catchment area where there would be forest for hunting and rivers for fishing. So a whole chain of villages spread along the foot of the escarpment, usually about 3 miles apart, because it took that much to provide the forest for firewood and hunting and that sort of thing. So in Champlain's day, he said there were 8 villages that he visited, and that would be between Craigleith and Osterbluff, yes.
And so whenever, the fur trade came about and colonization began to happen, it really truly uprooted and disconnected. We lost that piece, that circle became totally jarred, and we didn't know how to deal with that. So, for the Wendat, the Huron, and the Anishnaabek people that lived here, all of a sudden, life in the world changed. The stories that have been told by my elders have been that at the time whenever the fur trade was at its highest around this area, around the 1700 mark, the Iroquois was making its way here. And they had aligned themselves with the colonists, and they were starting to take over the land of all of the peoples that were here, and driving people out. So the seers and the prophets of the Anishnaabek people said, it's time to move north. And so a lot of the population moved north. And so, right here is a huge battleground. Huge battles took place along this area. So there has been power, there has been, great connection and abundance, and there's been great pain and suffering in this area. What resulted in all of that was that the Anishnaabek people were able to reclaim the land with what was left of the Wendat people and reclaim the Big Hill and drive the Iroquois out and get some state and sense of normalcy again so that they could start to do that connection.
In 1833, the land was surveyed and formally prepared for European settlement. Originally named Alta, it was renamed Collingwood Township in 1834. The first land grants were primarily awarded to retired soldiers, sailors, and the children of United Empire Loyalists. So why did people choose to finally settle here? They followed detailed survey reports that spoke of rich timber, mineral resources, and good soil. Scottish and Irish settlers from neighboring townships began moving into the back settlement at the foot of the Escarpment, forming communities like the Pretty River Valley. Born of ancient seas and sculpted by the slow march of ice, this rugged landscape was first known and tended by the hands of Indigenous peoples. Centuries later, when settlers arrived to work the soil, they looked upon the same horizon and found the same enduring beauty in the rugged hills. Though their histories were vastly different, they all felt the same unmistakable pull, the quiet realization that this wild expanse was, and always would be, home. By the mid-19th century, over 20 rural communities had emerged, establishing the schools, churches, and stores that solidified the township's place on the map. The enduring landscape of the Escarpment, born of deep time and shaped by glaciers, was the reason people came, and it remains the centerpiece of our community's history.
And my grandfather, great-grandfather, Alexander McEwen, was one of the first settlers in Duncan. Duncan was a thriving little community at one time. There was a general store, 2 churches, a blacksmith shop, a school, an orange hall, and several sawmills, and it was quite a thriving community.